Welcome to This Explainer. All right, we're unpacking a truly massive week in AI today. We're looking at what I can only describe as a collision course. There is this alarming, kind of terrifying disconnect right now between failing safety frameworks on one hand and absolutely unstoppable global investments on the other. So let's get right into it. We are hitting the ground running today with a pretty chilling assessment from an independent watchdog panel. UC Berkeley's Stuart Russell actually pointed out that companies have backed away from their earlier commitments and that they're planning to release models even if it's demonstrably unsafe to do so. That proves the guardrails on frontier AI, yeah, they're actively failing. And that really sets the stage for a highly volatile week ahead. So let's look at part one, the AI safety crisis, where, well, nobody passed the test. Let's dive right into the Future of Life Institute's Summer 2026 AI Safety Index. They assessed every major lab on risk management and transparency. And the scope of the problem is abundantly clear here. Literally, nobody passed. The absolute highest score goes to Anthropic, and that is just a C+. Meanwhile, the companies building the foundational enterprise models we use every single day, they're seriously struggling. OpenAI and Google DeepMind are sitting at a C, Meta is dragging behind with a D+, and then you have xAI, DeepSeek, and Mistral receiving outright failing grades across the board. So you might be wondering, why exactly are they failing so badly? Well, the panel found this really dangerous pattern of moving goalpost behavior. Basically, cutthroat competitive pressure is eroding those voluntary safety pledges way before government regulations can even take effect. And what's absolutely crucial to understand here is that major US and EU labs are quietly reversing their earlier bans on military applications. They are now actively seeking out defense partnerships just to fund their massive scaling efforts. And compounding this whole safety crisis is a massive, immediate legal threat. The New York Times, backed by a pretty formidable coalition of publishers, just asked a federal judge to sanction OpenAI. They're alleging that OpenAI is intentionally withholding vital evidence about what is actually in their training data. Which brings us to a literal multi-billion-dollar question. What happens if the legal foundation of every large language model just crumbles? If publishers successfully force the disclosure of the actual training data composition, it exposes everyone. From Meta to Google, we're talking about existential legal liability. And for OpenAI specifically, this lands right as they approach a staggering $42.6 billion IPO. Okay, moving on to Section 2, the global infrastructure race, or what we're looking at as government as infrastructure. Now, what's really interesting is how global powers are reacting to all these failing safety grades and legal vulnerabilities. Honestly, they're absolutely doubling down. South Korea just committed an eye-watering $880 billion. That's about 1,350 trillion won, dedicated to a 10-year national AI and semiconductor investment plan. It's a staggering amount of capital. They're calling this their triple axis. It pumps roughly $518 billion straight into memory chip manufacturing with giants like Samsung and SK Hynix. Then it drops another $550 billion on 8.4 gigawatts of massive AI data centers. And to top it all off, they are aiming to increase their global market share in humanoid robotics 20-fold by 2028. The core takeaway here is that despite the safety failures we just talked about, governments are now treating AI as critical national infrastructure. They are putting it in the exact same category as highways, bridges, and power grids, really just to contest US and Chinese hardware choke points. Which brings us to our final focus, Section 3, the July 17 convergence, the tipping point. Let's see how this all builds to a massive collision course happening simultaneously on opposite sides of the planet on July 17th. On one side, you have the expected launch of Google's Gemini 3.5 Pro, which is pushing immense technical boundaries. And colliding head-on with that on the exact same day in Shanghai at the World AI Conference, President Xi Jinping is formally elevating AI to a top-tier national priority. Now, the 2.1 million token question, that is the defining feature of Gemini 3.5 Pro. For you and me, a context window that massive means you could feed entire company databases, decades of financial records, or vast legal archives into a single solitary prompt. If this unprecedented capacity holds up without the recall degrading, without the model just forgetting information, it opens up enterprise workflows that literally nobody else can touch right now. But if it fails, well, it's just another cautionary tale of really impressive specs that simply don't translate to the real world. While everyone and the media will be hyper-focused on the benchmark headlines hitting on the 18th, the real stakes are hidden in the governance architecture that's solidifying this exact week. Just look at this timeline. You've got China's companion law taking effect on July 15th, the Gemini launch and Shanghai conference on the 17th, frontier benchmarks on the 18th, and then the US voluntary standards deadline right around the corner on August 1st. The governance rules being written right now, they will actually dictate what these models are legally allowed to do in production for the entire next decade.
So, I want to leave you with this final kind of provocative thought. As major labs completely fail their safety indexes and entire nations pour trillions into this massive infrastructure arms race, who is really in the driver's seat of our AI future? Will market-driven development and national infrastructure races completely outpaced our ability to enforce government regulation? Or has that ship already sailed?